Here's what's coming up on Minnesota Vikings Now, the latest on Ed Donatel. Just how hot is his seat after a disappointing loss to the Giants in the NFL playoffs? If he does go, who are some potential replacements to consider? And yes, we will have some Kirk Cousins conversation after he has understandably, I'll just use the phrase, been memed for throwing the check down on 4th and 8. All that and more coming up on today's edition of Vikings Now. You're watching Minnesota Vikings Now. I am Tom Downey. A lot to get into on today's show. And we begin with the status and potential future of Ed Donatel, where things sit. The Vikings' embattled defensive coordinator, I would say understandably so, after Vikings defense once again played bad in a pivotal game. 431 yards, 289 passing yards, 142 rushing yards, 6.3 yards per play, 31 points allowed. No turnovers, by the way, from either side. So it was just the opposing offense just took it to you nonstop. And what is probably most, it wasn't that Saquon Barkley went off in that game, was that Daniel Jones. Yeah, Daniel Jones. Everyone was kind of like, he's not very good. He took it to Minnesota repeatedly, not just through the year where he threw for 301 yards. He also ran the ball 17 times for 78 yards. The Giants ran it 30 times total, the majority of those going to Daniel Jones, 7 first downs on the ground. It wasn't Saquon. Saquon had, I'm looking at my notes here, 53 receiving yards, 56 receiving yards, 53 yards on the ground. It's not bad, it's good, but Daniel Jones beat Minnesota. And it would be one thing if this wasn't a new development for the Minnesota Vikings, if this wasn't the first time the Vikings had all kinds of issues here. They just haven't been good on defense. They're near the bottom in points per game, yards per play, rushing yards per game, passing yards. They're just a bad defense. And yeah, we can say they need better players at corner, etc., but it's also on your defensive coordinator to make the adjustments. You go back and look at Daniel Jones' throws. Everything's inside of 10 to 15 yards. There were 3 balls beyond 20 yards downfield. Everything was short, quick, get it out, or making some plays on the move. I thought it was a terrible defensive job, and I think the coordinator deserves a lot of blame for that. That's his side of the ball, right? So what do you guys think? Some more conversation on this here in a moment. But should the Vikings fire Ed Donatel? Y for yes, N for no. This will be the pinned comments on today's video. You should know the drill by now. If an ad break comes here on YouTube, take advantage of it. Head down there and let us know. Y for yes, fire Ed. N for no, keep him. This is my belief. I don't know how you can keep Ed Donatel. And I know he was a good hire. It made sense at the time. Go get somebody else. There are plenty of viable defensive coordinator candidates out there. To just roll it back and say, well, it'll be different this time after you had one of the worst defensive units in the NFL. I just don't understand how you could say, yeah, we saw enough to roll it back. I think it was a good first year overall for Kevin O'Connell. That defense needs fixing, or the regression is going to hit hard in a bad way next year. Now, we are trying to get to 11,000 subscribers here on our Vikings YouTube channel. Season's over. We're not going anywhere. Make sure you guys are subbed for free. Hit the red button or the black and white if you're on the new interface for YouTube there. Get to 11,000 subscribers as soon as humanly possible. We are 421 away. One away from really nice. We're still aiming for 11K. Hit that sub button for us right now. Number 5. Let's go through our top 5, I should say. Our top candidates to take over as the Vikings defensive coordinator. First up is your pipe dream to an extent, Brandon Staley. As we sit here filming this, he has not been fired by the Los Angeles Chargers. In the event he does, I can't think of a better hire for Minnesota. Staley overlapped with Kevin O'Connell. Staley has had issues finishing games with the Chargers, obviously, and their defense wasn't that great this year, in large part because of injuries. But remember, he got the job in the first place of how good he was as the Rams defensive coordinator. So maybe just bring him in and say, all right, got Kevin O'Connell, Brandon Staley. Those two together should be able to, well, they had a lot of success with the Rams, didn't they? So I think this would be a great hire for Minnesota. I'm not necessarily going to get my hopes up too high there. kind of thought he'd be fired by now, and as of filming, he has not been fired. That raises some red flags about if it will actually happen. He'd be the first name on my list. Number 2, Brian Flores, the current Steelers defensive assistant. The Browns appear to be very much in the mix for Brian Flores, who does a lot of intriguing things for you on the defensive side. The Dolphins' defense collapsed this year without him. That's a pretty big sign. They run a 3-4 front. They also mix in some 4-3. It's a very multiple front, but 3-4 has been their base in Miami, and of course, that was the case with Pittsburgh this past season as well. Flores likes to blitz. He plays man-to-man, which, Vikings didn't do a lot of. You would need some better corners on this team. I think you do that anyway. Also a good team at stopping the run, which, or at least historically, was an issue for the Vikings this past year. So Flores, obtainable, but they got to move quickly if they're going to go get him. The Vikings could be looking for a new hire in their defensive coordinator, and these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available, and that's why you got to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. We've hired a bunch of people here at Chat Sports over the past calendar year. One of them was producer Patrick, and things have gone pretty darn well from that standpoint. So be like us, use LinkedIn Jobs. You can just very easily create a free job post, because that's not what you want to spend all your time doing is creating a job post. You want to spend your time interviewing, right? Add your job in the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools, by the way, like screening questions, make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you want to interview and eventually hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs number 1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/NFL Daily. That's linkedin.com/NFL Daily. Terms and conditions do apply, but the link is also in the comments section and the description of today's show. Let's go back to our potential Ed Donatel replacements, the big, sexy names to go higher, right? Number 3, I should say, is Jim Schwartz. Now, Schwartz has run more of a 4-3 front, although Tennessee is a 3-4, but Schwartz, historically speaking, prefers that 4-3 style. Likes man-heavy in coverage stuff, does benefit from top pass rushers. Schwartz has proven, though, he's been the DC many a time in the past, and maybe you would like some more veteran provenness as opposed to going with the young upside candidate this time around, because you are in decent shape as an organization. You don't necessarily want someone learning on the job. Of the two base defense, which I will make note, as you guys vote, 3-4 for 3-4, or for the 3-4 defense, or 43 for the 4-3 defense, doesn't matter as much as it once did. You're mostly in nickel, so how you are utilizing your front in terms of what you ask them to do can be similar regardless of a 3-4 base or a 4-3 base, which you do in the back end. As we saw this year for Minnesota, was a very big deal. So it's not as impactful, but it does still matter for your archetypes, right? So pick one for me. 34 for the 3-4 defense, or 43 for the 4-3 defense. Ejiro Evero next up here, the Broncos defensive coordinator. Very real chance he just sticks around in terms of he's going to be in Denver as the DC for whoever they hire, be it a Peyton, Harbaugh, etc. Although, hey, maybe they go with Sean Payton. Peyton allegedly wants Vic Fangio. Maybe they go back to Denver. In that case, he's got an open job, and there would be a lot of teams in the mix to hire him. He's getting head coaching interviews, after all. The Broncos defense, despite the offense being terrible, constantly putting the Broncos into a bad spot for success. The Broncos defense was top 10 in pretty much every metric you would want. The 5th in yards, 7th in points. Hey, you allowed more points than you had yards, right, from that perspective? Well, short fields because your quarterback was, cooking things to the point of burning them badly. So I think he'd be a great hire, much like Brandon Staley, in the event he comes open. But number 5 might be the most logical hire here for Minnesota, and I would argue maybe fixing a mistake you made last time around. Sean Desai, the current assistant head coach for the Seattle Seahawks, had plenty of interest last year. He interviewed the Vikings defensive coordinator. He is on the right side of 40. He does not turn 40 until later in April. The team knows him well. He was the Bears safety coach for 2 years after spending 5 years as a quality control coach, defensive coordinator for a year in Chicago. They blow it all up through no fault of the defense. Frankly, they were much worse on defense this year than what they were under Sean Desai. He is now associate head coach, and defensive assistant. I think Seattle's defensive boost in part comes from Desai. He's going to draw a lot of interest in the event you fire Ed Donatel. I think Desai is the perfect blend of realistic and upgrade at the defensive coordinator spot, and it is still kind of a similar defensive scheme, so you're not totally changing everything from that standpoint. You're just getting a better guy in charge to run it. All right, who is your top Ed Donatel replacement? Is it Sean Desai? Is it the big name there? We're not done with the show yet, so let me know in the comment section who your top Ed Donatel replacement is. Before we go, we had to have some semblance of Kirk Cousins conversation. Kirk Cousins, at least for this year, and at least until he proves it wrong, has lost what I call the narrative battle. What we make fun of Kirk Cousins, media, fans alike, and he's check down Kirk. And then he throws a check down in the most pivotal moment of the game. Like, there's a lot to break down. And make no mistake, you can't throw that pass. I didn't like the play design either. You've basically got 2 vertical routes, a deep crosser, and Hawkinson in the flat. You got to go to KJ Osborne or Thielen. You got to make a very aggressive throw in that moment. If that's, 2nd and 8, he's making the right play call. But it's 4th and 8. You got to make a throw that gives your team a chance to get the first down. It's a bad decision by Kirk. I don't love the play call either, the design of it all. But you could have thrown the vertical shot to Thielen, single coverage. He has leverage. If you throw it with anticipation, Osborne does get open on that deep dig. Going to Hawkinson is just bad. You're just not going to win that play. With that said, I do not think it is fair to blame Kirk Cousins for that loss, for what we just spent the entire video on. Your defense sucked. You are not going to win very many football games allowing 31 points. It's like your offense turned them all over a bunch. Kirk Cousins was 31 of 39, 273, 3 total scores on a day in which the ground game had 60 yards from Dalvin Cook, 4 yards per carry, nothing longer than 11. The ground game was not great. 3 touchdowns, no turnovers. If I had told you this was Kirk Cousins' stat line, I think y'all would have thought Minnesota wins. But they didn't, because the Giants' offense took it to your defense. So when it comes to, got to make changes, right? You can't have the same repeating effort. I'm just going to roll it back with Kirk and the offense. They were a great offense. You're getting 24 points per game. It's top 10 in the NFL. You had a top 10 offensive performance. Your quarterback played great until the final throw on 4th and 8, which was absolutely brutal and you can't have, right? But your defense sucks. So I understand the frustration. I understand that, hey, we're going to meme Kirk Cousins. He's going to get made fun of, etc. He lost the narrative battle. But when it comes to making actual changes for this team, I'm not looking at QB. I'm looking at the defense that desperately needs help in multiple areas.